Welcome to Wisdom Life, the hushed corner of the internet where every night becomes a candlelit doorway into history's quietest rooms. Tonight, instead of crossing oceans, we'll glide backward through centuries. We'll tiptoe over the creaking floorboards of memory and enter a world that feels as far away as the moon yet as close as the slow beat of your own heart, a world where life moved at the pace of sunrise, rough-edged, fragrant with earth, and threaded with tiny miracles half buried beneath dust, stone, and silence. Picture streets rising stone by stone under the trembling glow of a single candle. Picture mornings beginning not with alarms but with the coppery crow of a rooster and the shy yawn of wooden hinges. People live pressed against the soil, not from nostalgia but from necessity. No ticking clocks, no glowing screens, no breathless rush, only the steady inhale of daylight and the long exhale of dusk, with life murmuring low like a lullaby around them. Yet not every corner of that world was gentle. Some places felt as though the very ground had forgotten how to be kind. Not because dragons circled overhead or armies clashed at the gates, but because of how the walls leaned, or the rivers bent, or what the wind carried on its back. So tonight, I ask you to dream with me. What if you had opened your eyes each morning in one of the loneliest, harshest corners of medieval life? Would you have braved the velvet-thick, mold-scented air of a forgotten Venetian alley? Would you have woken to the hollow clank of iron doors in a London jail, the sound echoing like a bell for lost souls? Or would you have stood beneath the white-hot yawn of a French country sun, in a village where even the breeze seemed too weary to move? We'll wander through these places slowly, reverently, not to startle, but to listen, to breathe with the people who once breathed there, and perhaps to borrow a little of their quiet strength for our own night. Before we step across the threshold, if this slow, lantern-lit storytelling soothes you, please touch the like button, a small gesture that keeps the hearth burning. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to Wisdom Life. Every new soul adds another log to the fire, and there are countless tales still curled in the embers, waiting to be told. And if you feel moved, leave a soft footprint in the comments. Tell me where you are right now, and what hour the clock sings in your corner of the world. I cherish knowing whose breathing slows beside mine, and where your dreams will drift tonight. Now, if you're ready, dim the lights just a little more. Curl into your favorite corner, let your eyelids sink like velvet curtains, and allow your shoulders to loosen their quiet burdens. Breathe in the scent of centuries. Breathe out the noise of today. Come. Take my hand. Let's slip backward together, one gentle heartbeat at a time. Part 1. Inside medieval Venice, the city of smells and shadows. Let's begin in a place where the water never sleeps, where even in the quietest hour of night, the canals still whisper secrets to the stone walls that line their edges. Venice, during medieval times, was a city unlike any other. It rose from the sea like a dream made real, built not on solid land but on wooden stakes driven deep into the mud. Bridges arched over narrow canals, connecting one world to another, while gondolas drifted slowly beneath them, their oars slicing through the dark water with soft, rhythmic splashes. But as beautiful as it might sound, life here was far from easy. Especially if you lived not in the grand palaces overlooking the Grand Canal, but in the winding alleys and damp courtyards where the sun rarely reached, and the air hung heavy with the scent of salt, sweat, and decay. Imagine waking up in such a home. The ceiling above you is low, the beams darkened by years of smoke from oil lamps and cooking fires. A thin curtain separates your space from the rest of the family, if there's even a curtain at all. Outside, the first sounds of the morning stir the city awake, the distant clang of church bells, the creak of wooden shutters opening, the muffled voices of neighbors greeting each other from opposite balconies. You sit up slowly, stretching tired limbs, and take a deep breath. The air is thick. Moisture clings to everything, your skin, your clothes, the straw mattress beneath you. There is no breeze inside these narrow streets. The heat lingers in summer, and the cold settles deep into your bones in winter. But somehow, everyone adapts. Somehow, life goes on. You step outside barefoot, careful not to slip on the worn stones slick with dampness. Water drips from the eaves of buildings, falling into puddles that never seem to dry. Children already run barefoot through the streets, chasing each other between stalls being set up for the day's trade. Fishermen bring in their early catch, unloading baskets filled with silver-scaled fish that still smell of the sea. The scent of salt water mixes with something else, something less pleasant. It's hard to describe, really. Not quite garbage, not quite sewage, but a little bit of both. In parts of the city, waste was dumped directly into the canals. There were no modern sewers, no running water inside homes. Life revolved around the rhythm of the tides, which washed away some of the filth, only to return it with every new wave. Still, people found ways to live beautifully, even here. They decorated their doorways with small pots of herbs, rosemary, sage, thyme, to mask the smells and invite a touch of green into their lives. They painted their shutters in soft pastels when they could afford paint, bringing color into a world often shaded in gray. As you walk through the streets, you pass open windows where women are already preparing breakfast, simple meals of bread soaked in wine or broth, maybe a piece of cheese or some dried fruit if the family has enough. Smoke curls out from chimneys, mingling with the morning mist that rolls in from the lagoon. You hear laughter, too, not loud, not wild, but gentle, warm. People greet each other by name. They stop to chat about the weather, about the price of fish, about how their neighbor's child is doing after a bout of fever. Life may be difficult, but it is also intimate. Everyone knows each other. Everyone shares the same struggles. Now imagine walking toward the edge of the city, where the land meets the water more openly. Here, the canals widen, and the bridges grow sturdier. You see merchants unloading goods from ships that have traveled from distant lands, spices from the east, silks from Byzantium, glassware from Murano. The scent of cinnamon and cardamom floats in the air, mingling with the salty breeze. But just beyond this bustling trade lies another Venice, quieter, slower, more mysterious. In the shadowed corners of the city, where the light barely reaches, life moves at an even gentler pace. Old men sit outside their homes, watching the world go by with tired eyes. Cats slink silently through alleyways, disappearing behind stacks of crates and barrels. The sound of footsteps echoes strangely in the empty spaces between buildings. At dusk, the city changes again. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rooftops. Lanterns flicker to life, their glow dancing on the surface of the canals. The air grows cooler, heavier. The city quiets down, not all at once, but gradually, like someone exhaling after a long day. You find yourself near a small bridge, leaning against its worn stone railing. Below you, a gondola glides silently through the water, carrying two figures wrapped in cloaks. Their conversation is hushed, their laughter soft. You watch until they disappear into the darkness, leaving only ripples behind. Above, the stars begin to appear, scattered like tiny drops of light across the sky. Somewhere nearby, a lullaby drifts from an open window, a mother singing to her child, her voice rising and falling like the tide. And as you stand there, breathing in the cool night air, you feel something unexpected. Peace. Despite the hardship, despite the smells and the dampness, despite the lack of comfort we now take for granted, there is a strange kind of beauty in this place. A quiet resilience. A sense of belonging. Venice, in the medieval age, was not an easy place to live, especially if you were poor, especially if you lived in the shadows. But it was alive. It was full of stories. And if you listened closely, you could almost hear them whispering in the wind. So as we continue our journey tonight, let's carry this memory with us, of a city that floated on water, of lives that moved slowly yet meaningfully, of a place where even the worst of conditions couldn't erase the warmth of human connection. Because soon, we'll visit another place, darker still, colder perhaps, but equally full of life in its own quiet way. For now, let the image of Venice settle in your mind. Let the sound of the water lapping against the stone walls become your lullaby. And if sleep finds you before we reach the next chapter, then I hope you dream gently and wake with peace in your heart. As night deepens in Venice, the city settles into a rhythm all its own, slow, soft, almost dreamlike. The streets that buzzed with life just hours ago now lie quiet. Save for the occasional flicker of candlelight behind wooden shutters or the distant echo of footsteps on stone. You walk slowly through one of those narrow alleys, your breath visible in the cool air. The walls around you are damp to the touch, covered in moss where the sun never reaches. Above, the sky is dark but clear, revealing a tapestry of stars that seem closer here, as if the water below reflects not just light, but stillness. There's a kind of magic in this hour, the kind that doesn't shout or demand attention, but simply exists. A quiet magic. One that invites you to stop, breathe, and listen. Listen closely. The wind moves gently between buildings, carrying with it the scent of salt, wood smoke, and something faintly sweet, perhaps from a nearby bakery where bread has been left to rise overnight, waiting for morning's first fire. You pass by a small courtyard tucked between two tall homes. There's a bench there, worn smooth by years of use. Someone has placed a single clay pot with a sprig of lavender beside it, its fragrance mixing with the night air in a way that feels like a small act of kindness. You sit down for a moment, letting the calm settle over you. Around you, the city sleeps, not all at once, but piece by piece. A window opens briefly, then closes again. Somewhere upstairs, a child stirs in their sleep, mumbling softly before drifting off once more. A cat leaps silently from one rooftop to another, barely making a sound. It's easy to imagine how time feels different here, slower, softer, less urgent. In medieval Venice, people didn't live by clocks the way we do today. They lived by the tides, by the rising and setting of the sun, by the rhythm of church bells that rang out across the canals at regular intervals. There was no rush, no constant need to be somewhere else. Life unfolded in layers, each moment given space to breathe. And so, even in the poorest neighborhoods, there was a kind of peace. Not the peace of luxury or comfort, because those were rare, but the peace of familiarity. Of knowing your neighbors, of sharing bread with someone who had little more than you did, of finding warmth in small gestures. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the gentle lap of water against stone. This sound, it's always there, isn't it? A constant companion in this floating city. Sometimes loud, sometimes barely a whisper, but always present. Like a heartbeat beneath the surface, reminding everyone that they're part of something larger, the sea, the sky, the slow turning of time itself. Now imagine stepping onto a small wooden bridge, looking out over the canal below. The moon casts a silver glow across the water, reflecting the rooftops and chimneys that line the edges of this ancient place. A lone gondola floats silently beneath you, its oar dipping into the water with a soft, rhythmic hush. Inside, an elderly man sits wrapped in a woolen shawl, his eyes closed as if he, too, is listening to the night. He might be heading home after a long day of work, mending fishing nets, carving wood, or selling vegetables in the market square. Or perhaps he's returning from a visit with a friend, or from evening prayers at the local chapel. Whatever his reason for being out so late, he moves with ease, as though the city knows him and welcomes him back every night. You watch until the boat disappears around a bend, swallowed by shadows and silence. And as you turn to walk home, you notice something you hadn't before, a small lantern hanging above a doorway, swaying slightly in the breeze. It's not bright, not flashy, but it glows with a steady, welcoming light. Inside, someone waits, maybe a mother, a sibling, a friend, keeping that light on, just for you. Because in Venice, even in the darkest corners of the city, there was always someone watching, someone caring, someone ready to share what little they had. That thought lingers in your mind as you make your way back through the winding streets, your steps echoing softly against the stones. You pass by a small chapel tucked into a quiet corner of the neighborhood. Its heavy wooden doors are closed for the night, but inside, a single candle burns near the altar, casting a warm glow through the stained glass windows. Even now, when most of the city is asleep, that light remains, a quiet promise that not everything fades when darkness falls. And perhaps that's the true spirit of medieval Venice, not the grandeur of its palaces or the wealth of its merchants, but the resilience of its people, the gentleness of its knights, the way life continued, quietly and beautifully, even in the hardest of places. So as we leave this city behind, at least for now, let's carry with us the image of those narrow alleys, the sound of water against stone, the scent of salt and smoke in the air. Let's remember that even in the worst places to live, there were moments of peace. Moments of connection. Moments worth holding on to. Because soon, we'll step into another world, colder, darker, more isolated. But for now, let Venice cradle your thoughts, let its quiet rhythm guide your breathing, let its gentle presence remind you that wherever you are tonight, you are safe. Part 2. Inside a medieval London jail, where time stood still. Let's step now into a place where time moves differently, not faster or slower, but simply quieter. This is a place where voices are few, footsteps are slow, and silence stretches long like shadows at dusk. We are standing inside a medieval jail in London, a place many feared, some avoided, and others had no choice but to call home, if only for a short, difficult while. The air here is heavy, not just with dampness or smoke, but with something else entirely. A quiet weight. A sense of waiting. Of holding your breath. It is cold, even in summer. The stone walls do not warm easily, and they hold onto the chill like an old memory that refuses to fade. Water drips slowly from cracks in the ceiling, landing in puddles that never seem to dry. The floor beneath your feet is uneven, rough stones worn smooth by years of footsteps, most of them unwilling. You take a slow breath, letting your eyes adjust to the dim light. There is no sun here. No windows to let in the morning sky. Only small slits high up near the ceiling, barely enough to catch a glimpse of daylight, and even then, only when the clouds allow it. A single torch burns in a sconce nearby, its flame flickering gently against the darkness. Its light dances across the walls, casting long, wavering shapes that move like ghosts. And perhaps they are. Because this place holds stories, not written down, not spoken aloud, but felt in the stillness. Each cell is small, its iron bars rusted with age. Inside, straw covers the floor, though it is often damp, sometimes moldy. There is no bed, no blanket, no privacy. Just the cold stone wall behind you, and the cold iron in front. But even here, life continues. Some people sit quietly in the corners, wrapped in thin cloaks, their faces tired but calm. Others pace slowly, trying to keep their blood moving in the chill. Some whisper softly to each other, sharing stories not to escape, but simply to remember what it means to be heard. There is little conversation, but what there is, carries weight. They talk about home. About family. About how they ended up here, sometimes for debts too large to repay, sometimes for crimes they did not commit, sometimes for nothing more than being poor in a world that favored the rich. Yet, strangely, there is no anger in their voices. Only resignation. Acceptance. And, in some cases, hope. Because even in the darkest places, people find ways to believe that tomorrow might be better. Outside, the city moves on, unaware, perhaps unwilling to know, what happens behind these thick wooden doors. But here, inside, time stretches long and slow. Meals come infrequently, bread soaked in water, maybe a bit of cheese if someone has been kind. Water is passed through the bars in a wooden bucket, always lukewarm, always tasting faintly of iron. There is no clock here, no way to measure the passing hours. You know only when the guards change shifts, when footsteps echo louder down the corridor, when a new voice joins the quiet murmur of those already inside. Night comes without warning. The torches burn lower. Shadows grow longer. Some curl into whatever warmth they can find, pulling their cloaks tighter around their shoulders. Others remain awake, staring at the ceiling as if searching for answers in the cracks above. Sleep does not come easily here. Not because of noise, for there is none, but because of thought. Because in the silence, your mind wanders. It goes back to the streets outside, to the marketplace filled with color and scent, to the sound of church bells ringing out over the rooftops. It remembers laughter, warmth, sunlight. And it wonders if those things will ever feel real again. Yet even in this place, there are moments of peace. Sometimes, a guard will hum a tune as he walks the corridors, not loud, not proud, but gentle. Sometimes, a prisoner will offer a piece of bread to another who hasn't eaten. Sometimes, someone will begin to speak softly, not about crime, not about punishment, but about a story from long ago. A childhood memory. A favorite dish. A lullaby their mother used to sing. And when that happens, the air changes. It becomes lighter. Warmer. For just a moment, the weight lifts. Because connection, even in the smallest form, reminds us that we are not alone. Even here. Even now. So imagine yourself sitting quietly in one of these cells, leaning against the cool stone wall, listening to the distant drip of water echoing off the stone. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts soften. And though you may not sleep deeply, you begin to drift, not into dreams, but into a place of stillness. A space between waking and rest, where the body relaxes and the mind lets go. This is not a place of comfort, but it is a place of quiet, of waiting, of reflection. And in its own strange way, it is peaceful. Because even in the worst places to live, there are moments where the world grows still, where time stretches long and soft, where the heart finds a quiet corner to rest. So as we leave this jail behind, slowly, respectfully, let's carry with us the memory of those quiet voices, the flicker of torchlight against stone, the sound of dripping water echoing through empty halls. Let's remember that even in the coldest places, humanity still finds a way to exist, to connect, to endure. Because soon, we'll visit another place, one where the wind blows freely, where the sun rises early, and where life unfolds under open skies. But for now, let the silence of this prison wrap around your thoughts like a soft blanket. Let the slow rhythm of time guide your breathing. As you sit quietly in the dim light of this ancient jail, time begins to feel different. It no longer moves in minutes or hours, but in breaths, and blinks, and the slow dripping of water from unseen cracks above. The world outside feels distant now, like a dream you once had and can barely remember. You lean back against the cold stone wall behind you, letting your body relax into its steady presence. It does not speak, but it holds you all the same, firm, unmoving, constant. There is comfort in that. Even here. Even now. A soft sound breaks the silence, not a voice, not a footstep, but something quieter. A rustle. A shift. Someone nearby turning slightly, trying to find a more comfortable position on the straw-covered floor. That small movement reminds you that you are not alone. Though words are rare, life still hums gently beneath the surface. There is no rush to speak, no need for explanations. Just the quiet understanding that you are all sharing this space, this moment, this waiting. And perhaps, that is enough. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. The air carries a faint scent, a mix of damp earth, old wood, and something faintly metallic. Not unpleasant, just present. Like the smell of rain before it falls. Like the hush before sleep. Outside these walls, the city continues its rhythm, footsteps on cobblestone streets, voices rising and falling in the marketplace, church bells ringing out across rooftops. But here, inside, everything slows down. No one hurries. No one shouts. Time stretches long and wide, like a river moving lazily through the countryside. Now imagine someone beginning to speak, softly, almost hesitantly. They don't say much at first. Just a word or two. Then another. And then, slowly, they begin to tell a story. Not about crime. Not about punishment. But about home. About the fields they used to walk through as a child. About the way the wind smelled after a summer storm. About the taste of warm bread dipped in honey, and the sound of their mother's voice calling them inside when the sky turned dark. Another person listens. Then another. And soon, the silence is filled with something else, not noise, not excitement, but connection. Because stories have a way of doing that. They bring people together. They remind us of who we were before we ended up here. Before the debt, before the accusation, before the misstep that led to this place. Before all of that, there was life. Simple, quiet, ordinary life. And even now, in the stillness of this jail, those memories remain. Someone else begins to speak, an older man, his voice deep but gentle. He talks about the stars. How, on clear nights, he used to lie on the grass and look up at them for hours. How he named some of them, gave them personalities, imagined stories about where they came from and what they watched over. Tonight, he says, if we could see the sky, maybe we'd see some of the same stars. Maybe, just maybe, they're watching over us now. That thought lingers in the air, not heavy, not dramatic, but comforting. You let it settle. Let it wrap around your thoughts like a warm shawl. And as you do, something shifts. Your breathing slows further. Your shoulders soften. Your mind drifts. Now picture yourself stepping outside, not physically, not yet, but in your imagination. You leave behind the thick wooden doors, the iron bars, the damp stones. You walk slowly through the city, past shuttered windows and sleeping homes. The streets are quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of lantern light. A breeze moves gently through the alleys, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and distant smoke. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then settles back into silence. You pass by a chapel where a single candle still burns inside, casting a warm glow through stained glass. Even at this hour, someone keeps the light alive. You keep walking until you reach the edge of the city, where the land gives way to open fields. Here, the air is different, cleaner, cooler, freer. Above you, the night sky stretches wide and deep, scattered with stars that seem closer than before. You breathe in deeply. And for the first time in a while, you feel something shift inside you. Peace. Not because everything has changed. Not because your situation is any different. But because, for a moment, you remembered that there is still beauty in the world. That there is still kindness. That there is still hope. And sometimes, that is enough. So as we return gently to this quiet place, to the jail, to the flickering torchlight, to the slow rhythm of time, let's carry that feeling with us. Let's remember that even in the coldest corners of the world, warmth still finds a way to exist. Even in the darkest places, light still shines, if only in memory. And even in the hardest moments, peace can be found, if only for a little while. So take a deep breath, let your body relax. Let your thoughts soften. Part 3, a poor village in medieval France, under burning sun and cold winter skies. Let's step now into a place far from the damp stone walls of London's jail, away from the echoing canals of Venice. We are walking now into open fields, where the sky stretches wide above us and the wind moves gently through tall grasses. There are no towering buildings here, no narrow alleys or bustling markets, just the quiet hum of nature and the slow rhythm of life unfolding under the sun. This is a poor village in medieval France. Not grand, not wealthy, not famous in the pages of history, but full of people who lived their lives with quiet strength, day after day, season after season. The morning begins slowly. The first light of dawn spills over the horizon, casting a soft golden glow across the rooftops of thatched hay and timber homes. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, rising into the cool air like gentle whispers of life beginning anew. You can hear the rooster crowing somewhere in the distance, not once, not twice, but again and again, as if reminding everyone that it is time to rise. And so they do. One by one, wooden shutters creak open. Doors unlatch with a soft groan. Bare feet press into dirt floors still cool from the night. People stretch, yawn, and step outside into the crisp morning air. There is no rush here. No clocks to chase, no deadlines to meet. Only the sun, the sky, and the work that must be done before it sets again. Imagine yourself walking down the main path of the village, your breath visible in the early chill. The scent of earth and wood smoke fills the air, mingling with something faintly sweet, perhaps the lingering fragrance of last night's cooking fire, or the first signs of wildflowers blooming along the edge of the fields. Children run barefoot ahead of you, chasing each other between wooden fences and straw-covered barns. Their laughter rises into the morning sky like birdsong, light and free. An old man sits on a wooden bench outside his home, warming his hands around a clay mug filled with warm herb tea. He nods at you with tired eyes, then looks back toward the fields beyond, where the day's labor has already begun. Because here, life is tied closely to the land. It asks for effort, patience, and resilience, but it also gives in return. It gives food, shelter, and a rhythm that feels steady, familiar, deeply rooted in time. Now picture yourself stepping into one of the small homes scattered throughout the village. The door creaks slightly as you push it open, revealing a space that is modest, but filled with warmth. A fire burns low in the hearth, its embers glowing softly beneath a pot of porridge that simmers slowly. Inside, a family gathers, parents and children, all wrapped in woolen shawls against the morning chill. They sit together on wooden benches, passing around bowls of warm grain mixed with dried fruit and honey, simple, nourishing, enough. There is no rush at this table. No distractions. Just the quiet joy of sharing a meal, of being together before the day pulls them apart. Outside, the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the fields. Men and women head out to work, some to plow the soil, others to gather water from the nearby stream, some to tend to the animals housed in wooden pens behind their homes. Cows low softly in the distance. Chickens scratch at the dirt, pecking for seeds. Sheep bleat quietly as they are led toward the hills. Everything moves at a gentle pace, not because there is no work to be done, but because there is an understanding that life must be lived fully, even in the midst of labor. And so, moments of rest are taken often. A farmer leans against his shovel for a moment, closing his eyes to feel the warmth of the sun on his face. A woman pauses while hanging laundry, watching her child chase butterflies near the edge of the field. An elderly couple sits together beneath a tree, sharing a piece of bread and a quiet conversation about the weather, about how the crops are growing, about whether they'll have enough to store before winter comes. These are small moments, but they are rich with meaning. They remind everyone that even in hardship, there is beauty. Even in poverty, there is peace. Even in the simplest of lives, there is love. As the day unfolds, the village continues its rhythm. At midday, the sun shines bright above the rooftops, casting sharp shadows across the dirt paths. The heat begins to rise from the ground, mixing with the scent of hay, sweat, and sun-warmed wood. Some take shelter during these hours, resting beneath trees, sitting inside shaded homes, sipping cool water drawn fresh from the well. Others continue working, moving slowly, deliberately, careful not to exhaust themselves too quickly. Life here depends on endurance, not speed. Because there is always more work than time. Always another harvest to prepare for. Another storm to watch out for. Another winter to survive. And yet, no one seems truly unhappy. There is a deep contentment in simply being here, in knowing your place, your role, your people. In knowing that when the sun sets tonight, someone will light a fire, someone will cook a meal, and someone will sing a lullaby to a child drifting off to sleep. So imagine yourself staying here for a while. Walking among the villagers. Helping carry buckets of water. Brushing the coat of a tired horse. Sitting beside a weaver as she works the loom, her fingers moving with practiced grace, creating cloth that will keep her family warm when the cold winds come. Feel the rhythm of this place settle into your bones. Let it remind you that not all lives must be fast, loud, or complex to be meaningful. Sometimes, the most peaceful lives are the ones closest to the earth. Closest to the seasons. Closest to each other. And sometimes, that is exactly what we need. To slow down. To breathe. To remember that we belong. So as our time in this village begins to fade, gently, respectfully, let's carry with us the scent of warm bread, the sound of children laughing, the image of smoke curling into the morning sky. Let's remember that even in the hardest places to live, there is still comfort. As the day continues to unfold, the rhythm of life in this village remains steady, not fast, not slow, but simply present. There is no rush here. No need to be anywhere at any specific time. Just the quiet understanding that each hour will pass in its own way, and that each task, however small, has its place in the larger picture of daily survival. Now imagine walking toward the edge of the village, where the homes begin to thin out and the land stretches wide before you, golden fields swaying gently in the breeze, hedgerows marking the boundaries between properties, wooden fences leaning slightly with age. The sun shines high above now, casting long shadows behind trees and barns. The air is warm, but not yet heavy, just enough to make your skin feel alive beneath its touch. You hear the soft hum of bees drifting from one wildflower to the next, the occasional rustle of leaves as a squirrel scurries up a tree, the distant call of a farmer guiding his oxen through the furrows of a freshly plowed field. It's easy to forget how far removed this place is from the noise and speed of modern life. Here, there are no engines, no sirens, no screens glowing with endless information. There is only the sound of wind, water, footsteps on dirt, and the occasional laughter of children playing near the stream. You follow the winding path that leads toward the fields, feeling the warmth of the sun on your back. As you walk, you notice how everything seems to move with purpose, not forced, not hurried, but natural. A woman bends over a patch of herbs growing beside her home, harvesting sprigs of thyme and sage with careful fingers. She bundles them together and hangs them to dry under the eaves, where they'll catch the breeze and slowly release their scent into the air. A boy climbs a low branch of an old apple tree, reaching for the ripest fruit he can find. He bites into it with delight, juice dripping down his chin, eyes closed as if savoring the sweetness like a secret known only to him. An elderly man sits on a bench outside his door, whittling a piece of wood with a small knife. His hands move slowly, deliberately, shaping something that might become a spoon, or perhaps a toy for a grandchild. He pauses every so often to look up at the sky, as if checking on the sun's position, then returns to his work with quiet focus. There is a kind of peace in all of this, a peace born not of luxury or comfort, but of simplicity, routine, and connection. Because even in hardship, life finds a way to be gentle. Even in poverty, there is still beauty. And even in the most difficult times, people still find ways to care for one another. Now picture yourself sitting down on a wooden bench beside a small garden filled with vegetables and herbs. A cat lounges nearby, blinking slowly in the afternoon light, tail flicking lazily as it dreams. You take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts soften. And for a moment, you simply exist. No pressure. No urgency. No need to do anything except be here, now. This is the rhythm of life in this village. Not exciting. Not dramatic. But deeply grounding. Because here, time does not race forward as it does in cities. It moves with the seasons, with the rising and setting of the sun, with the turning of the soil and the ripening of crops. In winter, the days grow short and cold, and the villagers gather close around their fires, sharing stories and warming their hands by the glow of embers. In spring, they plant seeds with hope, watching patiently as green shoots push through the earth. In summer, they rise early and work late, making the most of the long daylight hours. And in autumn, they prepare, gathering food, preserving what they can, ensuring they have enough to last until the cycle begins again. Life is hard, yes. But it is also full. Full of moments that may seem small, but together form the fabric of a life well lived. Imagine staying here through the changing of the seasons. You watch as snow falls gently one winter morning, blanketing the rooftops in white. Smoke rises steadily from chimneys, and inside, families huddle close, sipping warm drinks made from honey and herbs. Children play outside despite the cold, their cheeks flushed red, their laughter ringing through the crisp air. They build small figures from snow and sticks, pretending they are guardians of the village, protectors of the homes and animals. Later, they return inside, shaking off their damp cloaks, warming their hands by the fire. In the evenings, candles burn low, and someone reads aloud from a worn book or tells a story passed down through generations. The children listen with wide eyes, imagining themselves in lands far away, meeting kings and queens, dragons and fairies. But tonight, you remain here, in this simple home, among these simple lives. And somehow, it feels rich, rich with presence. Rich with love. Rich with the kind of peace that doesn't come from having everything, but from needing very little. So as our time in this village continues to unfold, let yourself settle deeper into its rhythm. Let the sound of wind through the trees become your lullaby. Let the scent of hay and wood smoke fill your lungs like a memory you've always carried. Let the quiet joy of everyday life remind you that peace can be found not only in grand escapes, but in the ordinary moments we often overlook. Because sometimes, the best places to rest are not the ones we dream of visiting. They're the ones that simply exist. Where people live quietly. Where time moves slowly. Where life unfolds gently, like the turning of a page in a book we never want to finish. Part 4, Inside Medieval Baghdad, where knowledge and shadows lived side by side. Let's step now into a place that once stood at the heart of the world, not because of war or conquest, but because of wisdom, learning, and quiet wonder. We are walking through the streets of medieval Baghdad, a city that once held the greatest library in the known world, where scholars gathered beneath candlelit domes to study the stars, translate ancient texts, and dream of truths yet to be discovered. But beyond the grandeur of its palaces and libraries lies another side of the city, quieter, slower, more grounded in the rhythm of everyday life. This is the part of Baghdad we rarely hear about. Not the Baghdad of sultans and poets, but of bakers and weavers, of children playing in dusty courtyards, of old men who sit outside their homes watching the world go by with tired eyes and warm smiles. The sun rises gently here, casting golden light across rooftops tiled with clay and wood. The scent of warm bread drifts from small bakeries tucked between narrow alleyways, mingling with the faint perfume of jasmine blooming behind courtyard walls. You walk slowly through these winding streets, your steps echoing softly against worn stone. Above you, clotheslines stretch between buildings, filled with garments swaying gently in the morning breeze, white robes, embroidered tunics, soft shawls dyed in shades of saffron, indigo, and rose. There is no rush here. No loud voices calling out, no hurried footsteps pressing forward. Only the quiet hum of life unfolding at its own pace. A man leans against the doorway of his shop, sweeping dust away from the threshold with slow, deliberate strokes. A woman pours water from a clay jug into a basin, her hands moving with practiced grace as she prepares for the day ahead. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs, soft and bright, before disappearing down an alleyway chased by friends, their sandals slapping lightly against the stone. This is Baghdad as it was for many, not a city of spectacle, but but of warmth, of community, of lives lived quietly beneath the watchful gaze of history. Now imagine stepping into one of the small homes nestled between the taller buildings. The door creaks slightly as you push it open, revealing a space that is modest but filled with comfort. A low wooden table sits in the center of the room, surrounded by cushions placed carefully along the floor. A brass lamp hangs from the ceiling, its flame flickering gently even in daylight, as if reminding everyone that darkness will come again soon enough. Against one wall, shelves hold books bound in leather, scrolls wrapped tightly in cloth, ink pots lined neatly beside quills made from feathers. This is not a palace, nor a library, but still, knowledge finds a home here. Someone is taking care to preserve what they could, to write down what they've learned, to pass on stories, recipes, prayers, and dreams. And so, even in this simple room, there is something sacred. A quiet reverence for words, for thought, for the idea that wisdom can live anywhere, not just in great halls or royal courts, but in the corners of ordinary lives. Outside, the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows over the rooftops. The heat begins to rise gently from the stone streets, mixing with the scent of spices being ground in nearby kitchens, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, cardamom, filling the air with a fragrance that feels like memory itself. You step back outside and continue walking. The city moves with a rhythm all its own, not fast, not slow, but steady. You pass by a school where young students sit cross-legged on the floor, listening intently as a teacher recites poetry from centuries past. His voice is calm, measured, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. Further down the street, a group of women gather around a fountain, filling clay jugs with cool water drawn from deep beneath the earth. They speak softly, sharing news of family, of health, of the weather, nothing urgent, nothing dramatic, but meaningful all the same. Life here unfolds in layers, each moment given space to breathe. There is no need to hurry, because time does not race forward in Baghdad the way it does in cities built for commerce and ambition. Here, time walks slowly, like someone carrying a full basket of fruit, careful, steady, aware of how easily everything could spill. And perhaps that is why this city, during its golden age, became a sanctuary for thinkers, writers, and dreamers. Because in a place where life moved gently, ideas had room to grow. Science, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, all found their place here, nurtured by minds that believed in the power of patience, observation, and curiosity. Imagine sitting quietly beneath a date palm near the edge of the city, watching the sky change colors as the sun begins to dip below the horizon. The wind carries with it the scent of baked bread and distant firewood, mingling with the faint sound of music drifting from somewhere unseen, a flute, perhaps, or a stringed instrument played by someone who simply wants to feel something beautiful before sleep takes them. Above you, the first stars begin to appear, small, quiet points of light scattered across the deepening blue. And suddenly, you feel something shift within you. Not excitement, not urgency, but peace. Because here, in this city where knowledge and shadows live side by side, you remember that the world is vast, but also kind. That wisdom can be found not only in books and lectures, but in the way people care for one another. In the way a mother tucks her child into bed with a whispered story. In the way a baker remembers your favorite kind of bread without being asked. In the way silence is respected, not feared. So as we prepare to leave this place, slowly, respectfully, let's carry with us the scent of spices in the evening air, the sound of quiet conversations beneath wooden eaves, the image of lanterns glowing softly as night falls. Let's remember that even in the most difficult places to live, there is still beauty. As night settles over the city, Baghdad begins to change, not in a dramatic way, but in a gentle one, like a slow exhale after a long day. The streets that once bustled with merchants calling out their wares, children chasing each other between stalls, and the rhythmic clatter of hooves on stone now grow quiet. Lanterns flicker to life along the narrow alleys, casting soft pools of golden light that stretch across worn cobblestones. The scent of burning oil mingles with the lingering aroma of roasted lamb and fresh bread, drifting from open windows where families gather for their final meal of the day. You walk slowly through this sleeping city, feeling the coolness of the evening air against your skin. There is no rush here. No urgency. Only the steady rhythm of footsteps echoing softly in the distance, someone returning home from the market, or perhaps a scholar walking back from the great library, his arms wrapped around a bundle of carefully wrapped scrolls. Now imagine stepping into a quiet courtyard tucked behind a wooden gate, slightly ajar. You push it open gently and step inside. A fountain sits at the center, its water still and dark beneath the moonlight. Around its edges, pots of mint and rosemary line the stone path, their fragrance rising faintly into the cool night air. Against one wall, a low bench waits beneath the shade of a fig tree, its branches stretching wide like welcoming arms. You sit down, letting your body relax into the stillness. Above you, the sky stretches endlessly, filled with stars that seem closer here than they do anywhere else. It's easy to imagine how people once looked up at these same stars, wondering about the universe, about time, about their place within it all. And perhaps, that is what made Baghdad so special during its golden age. Not just the knowledge stored in its libraries, not just the wealth of its rulers, but the quiet understanding that wisdom could be found not only in books, but in moments like this, sitting beneath a tree, listening to the wind, watching the sky. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in deeply. The world feels vast, yet peaceful. Full of questions, yes, but also full of answers waiting to be discovered. Someone nearby begins to hum softly, a tune passed down through generations, carried forward not in written form, but in memory, in voice, in love. It's a simple melody, not loud, not proud, but deeply soothing. Like the rocking of a cradle. Like the hush of a mother's voice before sleep takes her child. And as you listen, something inside you shifts. Your thoughts soften. Your breath slows. Your mind lets go. Because sometimes, peace doesn't come from grand escapes or distant lands. Sometimes, it comes from simply being present. Being still. Being quiet enough to hear the world breathe. So imagine yourself staying here for a while, in this courtyard, beneath this sky, surrounded by the scent of herbs and the sound of a distant flute playing somewhere in the darkness. Let the night wrap around you like a warm shawl. Let the silence become your companion. Let the stars above remind you that even in the darkest hours, there is always light. Now picture someone entering the courtyard, an old man, dressed in a simple robe, carrying a small clay lamp. He sees you sitting there and smiles gently, then joins you on the bench without a word. He doesn't speak right away. Instead, he looks up at the sky, following the arc of a single shooting star that streaks silently across the heavens. Then, after a long pause, he speaks, not loudly, not urgently, but with the kind of calm that can only come from years of living, of learning, of letting go. I used to teach, he says quietly, in one of the smaller schools near the river. You nod, listening. My students were curious, he continues. They asked questions about everything, the stars, the wind, why we dream, why some things last forever and others disappear overnight. He pauses, smiling slightly. I didn't always have the answers, he admits. But I loved the asking. You feel something stir inside you, not excitement, not fear, but a deep sense of connection. Because in this moment, you are not just a visitor. You are part of the story. Part of the quiet, unfolding truth of this place. And somehow, that makes everything feel okay. So imagine staying here, listening to his stories, sharing your own in return. Talking about nothing in particular, just the way people do when they're comfortable, when they know they don't need to impress or explain. Just talking. Just being. And as the night deepens, the city sleeps more fully around you. The lanterns burn lower. The music fades. Even the wind seems to slow its pace, as if not wanting to disturb the peace settling over everything. You lean back against the bench, letting your body sink deeper into relaxation. If sleep finds you now, let it come gently. Let it carry you away on the wings of quiet thought. Part 5, Inside the Mountains of the Carpathians, Land of Mist and Forgotten Whispers. Let's step now into a place where the wind moves like a quiet storyteller, weaving through ancient trees, slipping between rocky cliffs, carrying with it the hush of forgotten voices. We are walking now into the heart of the Carpathian Mountains, a land of deep forests, rolling fog, and villages tucked so far into the hills that they feel untouched by time. There is no rush here. No hurried footsteps. Only the slow rhythm of life shaped by nature, by seasons, by the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but full. The morning begins gently. The first light of dawn slips over the mountaintops, casting soft gold across the valley below. Mist rises slowly from the forest floor, curling around tree trunks like gentle ghosts returning home after a long night's wandering. You walk along a narrow dirt path, your breath visible in the cool air. The scent of pine and damp earth fills your lungs, grounding you in this quiet world. Somewhere nearby, a bird calls out, not loud, not urgent, just a single note that hangs in the air before fading back into stillness. This is the Carpathians, a land of solitude, of mystery, of stories whispered around fires and passed down through generations. And though it may seem remote, even lonely, there is comfort in its quiet strength. Now imagine stepping into one of the small villages hidden among the hills. It is modest, built from wood and stone, with roofs covered in moss from years of rain and snow. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, rising into the crisp morning sky like gentle reminders that someone is already awake, already beginning the day. Children run barefoot along the muddy paths, their laughter echoing softly between the trees. A dog barks once, then settles back into silence, content to watch the world go by. An old woman sits outside her home, peeling apples with careful hands. She places each slice into a wooden bowl beside her, humming softly under her breath, a tune that seems familiar, though you can't quite place it. There is something deeply peaceful about this place. Not because it is perfect. Not because life here is easy. But because it is real. Because everything moves at a pace that allows for presence. For connection. For breath. Now picture yourself entering one of these homes, small, low-ceilinged, filled with the warmth of a fire burning quietly in the hearth. Inside, the air smells of herbs drying above the stove, of fresh bread resting on a wooden shelf, of beeswax candles slowly melting in their holders. A family gathers around a table made from rough-hewn planks, passing bowls of porridge mixed with dried berries and honey. There is no rush at this table, only the quiet joy of being together before the day pulls them apart. Outside, the sun climbs higher, warming the earth beneath your feet. The village continues its rhythm, slow, steady, grounded. Men head toward the fields or the forest with axes slung over their shoulders. Women carry baskets filled with gathered herbs, roots, and wildflowers, some for cooking, some for healing, some simply for beauty. Even in hardship, there is care here. Care for the land. Care for each other. Care for the small things that make life feel meaningful. Now imagine walking beyond the village, deeper into the mountains. The path narrows, winding between towering pines and moss-covered stones. The sound of a distant stream trickles softly through the trees, barely audible beneath the rustle of leaves. Here, the world feels older. Time stretches differently. There is no clock to chase, no schedule to follow, only the rhythm of the wind, the whisper of leaves, the occasional call of an owl somewhere high in the branches. You find a place to sit, on a fallen log softened by years of rain and growth. Around you, ferns sway gently in the breeze, and tiny flowers bloom shyly between the roots of ancient trees. There is no need to speak. No need to do anything except be here, now. And somehow, that is enough. Because sometimes, peace isn't found in grand escapes or distant lands. Sometimes, it's found in the quiet spaces we allow ourselves to enter. In the moments when we let go of urgency. When we listen to the wind. When we remember how to breathe. So imagine staying here for a while, letting the mountain air fill your lungs, letting the silence wrap around your thoughts like a warm blanket. Let the mist settle over everything like a soft veil, turning the world into something dreamlike, something gentle. Let the stories of this place, the ones spoken and the ones never said aloud, become part of you. Because in the Carpathians, even the land tells stories. Of love. Of loss. Of people who lived close to the earth, who listened to the stars, who believed in spirits that walked among them. And perhaps, those beliefs were not so far from truth. Because in places like this, where the world slows down and the noise fades away, something inside us shifts. We begin to hear more clearly. Feel more deeply. Rest more fully. And as night begins to fall, the mountains grow even quieter. The last light of day slips behind the peaks, leaving behind a sky painted in shades of lavender and deep blue. The stars begin to appear, not all at once, but one by one, like memories returning slowly to the mind. You lean back against the log, feeling the coolness of the evening air against your skin. And if sleep comes now, let it come gently. As night deepens in the mountains, the world grows still, not empty, not silent, but full of a different kind of presence. The wind moves gently through the trees, brushing against leaves like fingers tracing the pages of an old book. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls out softly, its voice blending with the rustling branches, becoming part of the landscape rather than interrupting it. You sit quietly beneath a canopy of stars, wrapped in the cool mountain air, feeling the weight of the day slowly lift from your shoulders. There is no rush here. No need to be anywhere else. Only this moment. Only this breath. And as you let go of everything else, something inside you begins to soften. Now imagine walking back toward the village, following the winding path that leads you away from the forest's edge and toward the soft glow of lantern light spilling from wooden windows. The homes are quiet now, most already tucked into sleep. A few still have fires burning low within, their warmth seeping through the walls like a gentle invitation to rest. You pass by one such home, where the door is slightly ajar. Inside, a woman sits beside the hearth, her hands moving slowly as she spins thread from wool. Her face is lined with years of wind and sun, but her eyes are kind, her expression peaceful. She doesn't look up, but somehow, she knows you're there. And for a moment, you feel seen, not in a way that demands attention, but in a way that simply acknowledges your presence, as if to say, you are welcome here. You continue on, letting the silence wrap around you once more. There is no music tonight. No voices rising in laughter or song. Just the steady rhythm of nature, the occasional creak of wood settling, the distant call of a fox, the slow drip of water falling from the eaves of a roof warmed by the fire inside. It's easy to forget how rare moments like these are. Moments without noise. Without distraction. Without urgency. Moments where time stretches long and wide, allowing you to sink fully into its embrace. Now picture yourself stepping into one of the small homes at the edge of the village. Inside, the air is warm, filled with the scent of beeswax candles and dried lavender hanging from the rafters. A family sleeps quietly on straw-filled mattresses near the hearth, their breathing slow and even. Against one wall, shelves hold jars of honey, bundles of herbs, and small wooden bowls carved by hand. On the table, a clay mug rests beside a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth, simple things, but enough. This is life in the mountains. Not luxurious. Not extravagant. But deeply rooted in what matters. Here, people live close to the land. They gather mushrooms in the early morning mist. They carve tools from fallen branches. They listen to the weather before deciding when to plant or harvest. And they believe in stories, not just the ones told aloud, but the ones whispered in dreams, carried on the wind, hidden in the patterns of tree bark and river stones. Because in places like this, where the world feels older than memory, it's easier to believe that the unseen is still real. That spirits walk among us. That ancestors whisper guidance through rustling leaves. That peace can be found not only in knowing who we are, but in remembering where we come from. So imagine staying here for a while, sleeping beneath a thick woolen blanket, waking to the sound of birds greeting the morning, drinking warm tea made from herbs gathered just outside the door. Imagine walking barefoot across the cool wooden floor, stepping outside to see the first light of dawn slipping over the mountaintops, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Imagine watching smoke rise gently from chimneys, hearing the faint clinking of a cowbell somewhere in the distance, feeling the soft press of earth beneath your feet. This is the rhythm of life in the Carpathians. Slow. Gentle. Present. And as you move through it, you begin to understand why some people never leave. Why they choose to stay, not because they have nowhere else to go, but because they have found something rare. Something sacred. A place where time does not chase them. Where the world does not demand too much, where they can simply be. Part 6. Inside medieval Constantinople, where riches and ruin shared the same streets. Let's step now into a city unlike any other, a place where golden domes caught the morning sun, where marble streets echoed with the footsteps of emperors and beggars alike, where wealth and poverty walked side by side like old friends who had long since stopped questioning their bond. We are walking through the heart of medieval Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire, jewel of the Bosphorus, a city that stood as both a fortress and a beacon, a place of riches and ruin, of grandeur and struggle. The air here is thick with scent, salt from the sea, smoke from distant kitchens, incense drifting from churches with mosaics that shimmered like captured starlight. You walk slowly through the winding streets, past towering walls built to keep invaders out and secrets in. Above you, the great dome of Hagia Sophia rises like a promise, not just of faith, but of endurance, of a city that has seen empires rise and fall, yet still stands. But we are not walking toward the palaces today. We are stepping instead into the quieter corners of this city, where life was not written in gold or guarded behind velvet curtains, but lived in narrow alleys, on worn stone steps, beneath roofs patched with whatever cloth could be found. Here, in the poorer districts, the city breathes differently. Not less beautifully. Not less richly. Just more quietly. More gently. More human. Now imagine stepping into one of these neighborhoods at dawn, when the city is still waking. The first light spills over the rooftops, catching in the edges of broken tiles and worn wooden shutters. A soft breeze moves through the streets, carrying with it the scent of bread baking somewhere nearby, warm, comforting, familiar. Children run barefoot between stalls already being set up for the day's trade. A woman leans out from a second-floor window, shaking out a blanket, her laughter joining the quiet hum of early morning voices below. There is no rush here. No loud commands. Only the slow unfolding of another day, not different from the one before, not expecting to be better than the next, but simply present. A man sits outside his home on a low wooden bench, sipping tea from a small clay cup. He watches the world go by with tired eyes, nodding occasionally to neighbors passing by. His clothes are simple, worn, patched in places. But there is dignity in the way he holds himself, not pride, not arrogance, just the quiet understanding that he belongs here, even if history may forget him. Because that is the truth of this city. It remembers its rulers, its priests, its poets. But it also holds space for those who lived in the shadows, the ones who swept the temple steps, who sold figs in the marketplace, who sang lullabies to their children beneath cracked ceilings. And tonight, we walk among them. We listen to their stories. We breathe the same air they once did. And perhaps, just perhaps, we understand a little more about what it means to live fully, even when life gives little. Now picture yourself stepping inside one of the homes tucked between taller buildings. The door creaks slightly as you push it open, revealing a space that is modest but filled with warmth. A fire burns low in the hearth, casting soft shadows across the stone walls. Dried herbs hang from wooden beams, their scent mixing with the lingering aroma of last night's stew. A family gathers around a low table, sharing a simple meal, flatbread dipped in olive oil, olives soaked in brine, a small bowl of lentils warmed over the fire. They do not speak loudly. They do not rush. They simply eat together, passing bowls back and forth, offering pieces of bread to younger hands reaching eagerly across the table. This is life in Constantinople's poorer quarters, not easy, not luxurious, but deeply rooted in connection. Because here, people share everything. Food. Stories. Time. Even silence. And somehow, that makes all the difference. Outside, the city continues to wake. Merchants call out their wares, fresh fish wrapped in leaves, jars of honey sealed with wax, bolts of fabric dyed in deep reds and soft blues. The clang of metal against metal rings from a blacksmith shop, where sparks fly like tiny stars into the cool morning air. You step back outside, letting the warmth of the sun settle over your skin. The streets grow busier now, but not chaotic. There is rhythm here, not fast, not slow, but steady. People move with purpose, but not urgency. They greet each other by name, pause to ask after a neighbor's health, offer a helping hand to someone struggling with a heavy basket. In a city so vast, so full of contrasts, it is easy to feel lost. But here, in these smaller streets, in these quiet moments, you begin to feel something else. Belonging. Because even in the most crowded places, peace can be found, not in isolation, but in the gentle awareness that you are part of something larger. That you are not alone. That someone will remember your name. That someone will share their bread with you, even if they have very little themselves. So imagine staying here for a while, walking among the people, listening to their voices, watching the sunlight catch in the folds of a woman's embroidered shawl and the curve of a child's smile. Imagine sitting beside an old man who tells stories not for money or fame, but because he loves the sound of his own voice weaving meaning into the air. He speaks of the sea. Of how, when the wind is right, you can smell it even from the city center. Of how sailors return with tales of distant lands, of spices and silks, of storms that nearly swallowed their ships whole. And yet, they always come back. Because this city, for all its hardship, for all its noise, calls them home. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of Constantinople. That even when it does not give much, it gives belonging. And sometimes, that is enough. So as our time in this city begins to fade, gently, respectfully, let's carry with us the scent of warm bread and burning wood, the sound of voices rising softly in conversation, the image of lanterns glowing faintly behind shuttered windows. As the sun climbs higher over the city, Constantinople begins to reveal itself in layers, not all at once, but slowly, like an old book being turned page by page. You walk now through a different part of the city, still within its walls, still among its people, but in a place where life feels heavier, more worn by time and struggle. Here, the streets are narrower. The buildings lean closer together, their wooden beams darkened by years of smoke and rain. The scent of damp stone mixes with something faintly sour, not unpleasant, just present. This is one of the poorer quarters, tucked just beyond the bustling markets and grand avenues. It is not forgotten. Not truly. But it is quieter. More still. And in that stillness, there is a kind of peace. Now imagine stepping into a small courtyard hidden behind a crumbling archway. A fountain sits in the center, though it no longer flows. Moss clings to its edges, and ivy creeps slowly up the stone walls. Despite its age, there is beauty here, in the way sunlight filters gently through gaps in the rooftops, and the soft murmur of wind moving between the trees. You sit down on a worn wooden bench, letting your body relax into the quiet. There is no rush here. No need to be anywhere else. Only this moment. Only this breath. And as you let go of everything else, something inside you begins to soften. Someone nearby begins to hum, softly, almost hesitantly. It's a tune passed down through generations, carried forward not in written form, but in memory, in voice, in love. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply exists. Like the breeze. Like the rustle of leaves. Like the steady rhythm of time itself. Now picture someone joining you on the bench, an older man dressed in simple clothes, his hands rough from years of labor. He doesn't speak right away. Instead, he looks around quietly, taking in the space as if reminding himself where he is. Then, after a long pause, he says, "I've lived here my whole life." His voice is low, calm, not tired, just thoughtful. This city has seen so much, he continues. Emperors have come and gone. Wars have been fought outside these walls. And yet, we keep living. He smiles slightly, shaking his head. Some days it feels like we're ghosts walking through history. You nod, understanding without needing to say anything. Because in places like this, where past and present blur, where every building holds a story, where even the stones remember footsteps long faded, it's easy to feel both small and deeply connected. So imagine staying here for a while, listening to his stories, sharing your own in return. Talking about nothing in particular, just the way people do when they're comfortable, when they know they don't need to impress or explain. Just talking. Just being. And as the day unfolds, you begin to notice the small details of life in this neighborhood. A woman hanging laundry on a line stretched between two windows, her hands moving with practiced ease. A boy sitting cross-legged on the ground, carefully carving a piece of wood with a small knife, shaping something that might become a toy or a gift. An old dog resting in the shade of a doorway, tail flicking lazily as it dreams. Everything moves at its own pace. No urgency. No pressure. Just presence. Now picture yourself walking toward the edge of the district, where the land rises slightly and offers a view of the city below. From here, you can see the great dome of Hagia Sophia glowing softly in the midday light. You can hear the distant sound of church bells ringing out across the rooftops, calling people to prayer or reflection. Closer by, the sea glimmers in the distance, blue, endless, full of promise and mystery. You take a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, the coolness of the breeze against your face. And for a moment, everything feels okay. Because even in hardship, there is still beauty. Even in poverty, there is still peace. Even in the most difficult places, there is still hope. And sometimes, that is enough. So imagine staying here a little longer, letting the city wrap around you like a familiar song, letting the silence settle into your bones, letting the weight of the world lift, if only for a little while. Let the rhythm of Constantinople remind you that not all lives must be grand to be meaningful. That not all homes must be palaces to feel like sanctuary. That not all stories must be loud to be worth telling. Because sometimes, the most powerful moments are the quiet ones. Where we simply breathe. Where we simply listen. Where we simply exist. And as night begins to fall, the city changes again. The sun slips behind the hills, casting long shadows across the rooftops. Lanterns flicker to life in windows and doorways, their warm glow spreading gently through the streets. People gather in courtyards and open spaces, sharing meals, laughter, and stories passed down through generations. The city does not sleep, not completely. It simply slows. It settles. It breathes. Part 7, Across the Sands of the Sahara, where silence speaks louder than words. Let's step now into a place where time stretches endlessly beneath an open sky, where the wind moves like a whisper across golden dunes, and silence is not empty, but full. We are walking now into the heart of the Sahara, the vast desert that once stretched between civilizations, carrying with it caravans of traders, stories passed through generations, and the quiet rhythm of life lived under burning sun and star-filled skies. There is no rush here. No hurried footsteps. Only the slow, steady movement of sand shifting beneath your feet, of camels swaying gently as they walk, of the sun rising slowly over the horizon like a promise made long ago. The morning begins gently. The first light spills across the dunes, turning them from deep brown to soft gold. A breeze moves quietly through the air, warm even at this early hour, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant spice. You walk slowly through this endless landscape, feeling the warmth rise from the ground beneath you. The world around you is wide and open, no buildings, no trees, only the gentle curve of dunes stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere nearby, a bird calls out, not loud, not urgent, just a single note that hangs in the air before fading back into stillness. This is the Sahara, not easy, not forgiving, but deeply peaceful. A land of silence so complete, it feels like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Now imagine stepping into one of the small desert camps hidden among the dunes, a place where travelers rest before continuing their journey, where fires burn low beneath the stars, and where every moment feels like a gift. Tents made of woven cloth stand against the wind, their edges fluttering gently in the breeze. Rugs lie scattered across the sand, worn soft by years of use. Clay pots sit beside wooden bowls, filled with water drawn from deep wells hidden beneath the surface. Children run barefoot between tents, chasing each other in circles, their laughter rising into the cool morning air like birdsong. An old man sits outside his tent, sipping tea from a small metal cup. He watches the world go by with tired eyes, nodding occasionally to those who pass by. His clothes are simple, long robes to protect from the sun, a scarf wrapped loosely around his face. But there is dignity in the way he holds himself, not pride, not arrogance, just the quiet understanding that he belongs here, even if history may forget him. Because that is the truth of the desert. It remembers its people, its paths, its winds. But it does not shout. It does not demand. It simply exists. And in that existence, there is peace. Now picture yourself stepping inside one of the tents, low-ceilinged, shaded from the sun, filled with the scent of herbs drying above the fire. Inside, the air is warm but not heavy. A family gathers around a low table, sharing a simple meal, flatbread dipped in olive oil, dates softened by the heat of the day, warm milk poured into clay cups. They do not speak loudly. They do not rush. They simply eat together, passing bowls back and forth, offering pieces of bread to younger hands reaching eagerly across the table. This is life in the desert, not easy, not luxurious, but deeply rooted in connection. Because here, people share everything. Food. Stories. Time. Even silence. And somehow, that makes all the difference. Outside, the sun climbs higher, warming the earth beneath your feet. The camp continues its rhythm, slow, steady, grounded. Men prepare for the next leg of the journey, checking supplies, securing saddlebags, speaking softly about the path ahead. Women gather water from the well, filling clay jugs that will keep the family cool during the hottest hours of the day. Everything moves at a pace that allows for presence. For breath. For peace. And as you walk among them, you begin to feel something shift within you. Your thoughts soften. Your breath slows. Your body relaxes. Because in a place like this, where noise is rare and time stretches long, it becomes easier to remember what matters. Not the things we chase. Not the things we own. But the moments we share. The people we love. The quiet joy of being alive. So imagine staying here for a while, walking among the tents, listening to the voices, watching the sunlight catch in the folds of a woman's embroidered shawl and the curve of a child's smile. Imagine sitting beside an old traveler who tells stories not for money or fame, but because he loves the sound of his own voice weaving meaning into the air. He speaks of the wind. Of how, when the night is clear, you can hear it moving like music through the dunes. Of how stars shine brighter here than anywhere else, as if the desert keeps them close. Of how, sometimes, the silence feels like a presence, not lonely, not cold, but warm and familiar. And perhaps that is true. Because in places like this, where the world slows down and the noise fades away, something inside us shifts. We begin to hear more clearly, feel more deeply, rest more fully. So imagine walking beyond the camp, deeper into the desert. The sand shifts beneath your feet, soft and warm. The wind moves gently through the air, carrying with it the scent of earth and sun-warmed stone. There is no need to speak. No need to do anything except be here, now. And somehow, that is enough. Because sometimes, peace isn't found in grand escapes or distant lands. Sometimes, it's found in the quiet spaces we allow ourselves to enter. In the moments when we let go of urgency. When we listen to the wind. When we remember how to breathe. As the sun begins to dip behind the horizon, the desert changes again. The sky turns deep blue, then lavender, then dark. Stars appear one by one, like memories returning slowly to the mind. You lean back against a pile of soft rugs, feeling the coolness of the evening air against your skin. And if sleep comes now, let it come gently. Let it carry you away on the wings of desert winds and whispered legends. Let it remind you that even in the most remote corners of the world, there is peace. As night deepens in the desert, the world grows still, not empty, not silent, but full of a different kind of presence. The wind moves gently over the dunes, shaping them slowly with each passing hour. Somewhere in the distance, a lone jackal calls out softly, its voice blending with the rustling sand like a quiet song carried on the breeze. You sit quietly beneath a canopy of stars, wrapped in the coolness of the evening air, feeling the weight of the day slowly lift from your shoulders. There is no rush here. No need to be anywhere else. Only this moment. Only this breath. And as you let go of everything else, something inside you begins to soften. Now imagine walking beyond the camp, deeper into the desert, where the sand stretches endlessly beneath your feet and the sky feels closer than it ever has before. The moon casts a silver glow across the landscape, turning the dunes into soft waves frozen in time. The scent of dry earth and distant firewood fills your lungs, grounding you in this quiet world. Here, the desert speaks, not in words, but in silence. Not in noise, but in stillness. And somehow, that says more than anything else ever could. You walk slowly, letting your footsteps sink gently into the warm sand. Each step feels softer than the last, as if the earth itself is welcoming you, holding you gently beneath its surface. There is no music tonight. No voices rising in laughter or song. Just the steady rhythm of nature, the occasional creak of shifting dunes, the distant call of an unseen creature, the slow drip of time moving forward without urgency. It's easy to forget how rare moments like these are. Moments without distraction. Without pressure. Without demand. Moments where time stretches long and wide, allowing you to sink fully into its embrace. Now picture yourself finding a place to rest, on a small rise where the sand is smooth and cool, just beneath the curve of a gentle dune. You settle down, letting your body relax into the earth. Above you, the sky stretches endlessly, filled with stars that seem closer here than they do anywhere else. It's easy to imagine how people once looked up at these same stars, wondering about the universe, about time, about their place within it all. And perhaps, that is what makes the desert so special. Not just the vastness of its land. Not just the heat of its sun. But the quiet understanding that we are part of something much bigger. Something ancient. Something eternal. So imagine staying here for a while, watching the constellations shift slowly overhead, listening to the wind move like a whisper through the dunes, feeling the soft press of sand beneath your hands. Let the night wrap around you like a warm shawl. Let the silence become your companion. Let the stars above remind you that even in the darkest hours, there is always light. Now picture someone joining you, a traveler wrapped in a long robe, his face shaded by a scarf pulled loosely around his head. He sits beside you without a word, looking up at the sky. After a long pause, he speaks, not loudly, not urgently, but with the kind of calm that can only come from years of living beneath open skies. I used to follow the stars, he says quietly. When I was younger, I traveled with my father and uncle across the sands. We followed the constellations like maps. He pauses, smiling slightly. They never led us wrong. You nod, listening. Because in a place like this, where landmarks disappear with the wind and the only constant is the sky above, it makes sense to trust the stars. To believe in something that remains, even when everything else changes. So imagine staying here, listening to his stories, sharing your own in return. Talking about nothing in particular, just the way people do when they're comfortable, when they know they don't need to impress or explain. Just talking. Just being. And as the night deepens, the desert grows even quieter. The lanterns back at the camp burn lower. The last embers of the fire glow faintly against the darkness. Even the wind seems to slow its pace, as if not wanting to disturb the peace settling over everything. You lean back against the soft sand, letting your body sink deeper into relaxation. If sleep finds you now, let it come gently. Let it carry you away on the wings of desert winds and whispered legends. Let it remind you that even in the most remote corners of the world, there is peace. That even in the harshest places, there is warmth. That even in the deepest silence, there is music, if only you know how to listen. So imagine yourself drifting off beneath the open sky, the stars above you like tiny guardians watching silently through the night. Let the rhythm of the desert slow your thoughts. Let the cool air fill your lungs. Let the silence hold you like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. And as morning waits patiently on the horizon, let your mind slip gently into dreams. Because sometimes, the best places to rest are not the ones we dream of visiting. They're the ones that simply exist. Where time moves slowly. Where life unfolds gently. Where every breath reminds you that you are exactly where you need to be. As our journey comes to a gentle close, let's take one last quiet breath together. We've walked through the narrow alleys of medieval Venice, where water whispered against stone and lantern light flickered like soft memories. We've sat in the silence of a London jail, where time moved slowly and even the darkest places held moments of connection. We've stood beneath the burning sun and cold winter skies of a French village, where life unfolded quietly between fields and fireside stories. We've wandered the streets of Baghdad at dusk, where knowledge and shadows lived side by side, and where wisdom was passed not only in books, but in voices carried on the wind. We've climbed into the misty hills of the Carpathians, where the trees seemed to listen and the silence felt like a warm hand resting gently on your shoulder. We've stepped into the crowded streets of Constantinople, where riches and ruin shared the same stones, and where even the poorest corners held warmth, laughter, and belonging. And finally, we've crossed the endless sands of the Sahara, where silence spoke louder than words, and where the stars above reminded us that we are part of something vast, ancient, and deeply peaceful. These were not easy places to live. They were filled with hardship, uncertainty, and struggle. but within each of them, there was also peace. There was connection. There was life. And perhaps that is what matters most. Because no matter where we come from, no matter how difficult the world may seem, there is always a place where we can feel safe. Even if it's only inside our own minds. Even if it's only for a little while. So as you lie here tonight, wherever you are, whatever kind of day you've had, I want you to know something very important. You are not alone. There is a rhythm to this world that moves gently beneath everything. It beats in the wind. It hums in the silence. It lives in the way people care for one another, even in the hardest times. And right now, it wraps around you like a soft blanket, reminding you that it's okay to rest. It's okay to let go. It's okay to sleep. So take one more deep breath. Let your body relax. Let your thoughts soften. And if sleep finds you before this story ends, then may your dreams be soft, your heart be calm, and your mind be free of worry. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Good night.